A broken toaster killed me with one spark in my first life. In my second, 300 people watched the academy ruin me before I had even made one. The Awakening Hall was built to make young mages feel small. White pillars rose higher than trees. A crystal chandelier burned without candles. At the far wall, a gold ranking board waited to decide which of us would eat well and which of us would learn the nutritional value of hot water. My name stood at the top of the written examination list. Nolan. 1,000 points out of 1,000. I had spent 6 years earning that line. I had memorized monster cores, spell structures, mana channels, and the correct way to escape 40 kinds of magical disaster. The last subject had seemed especially useful. In my experience, disasters enjoyed meeting me. The top 12 students were supposed to receive places in the advanced class before awakening. The rule existed because knowledge and discipline mattered even when a student awakened a modest ability. At least, that was what the Academy brochure said. Instructor Garrett stood on the stage with 12 silver badges. He was broad, clean-shaven, and dressed in a red coat paid for by people who wanted their children to win. His smile looked polished enough to reflect light. He called 11 names. Mine was not among them. The last badge remained on the velvet tray. A quiet murmur moved through the hall. Students turned toward me. Parents lifted viewing crystals. Everyone knew who had placed first. Garrett raised the badge. The final advanced place goes to Trent. For one breath, the hall went silent. Then the sponsor section applauded. Trent walked past me in a bright red uniform. He was tall, handsome, and followed by the kind of friends who laughed before he finished speaking. His father funded the academy arena. That fact appeared on 3 plaques, 2 statues, and most of Garrett's decisions. Trent took the badge and pinned it over his heart. I raised one hand. Instructor, the rule gives that place to the first student on the written list. Garrett looked pleased that I had spoken. A butcher probably wore the same expression when a chicken volunteered to stand closer. The rule allows the academy to consider future combat value, he said. Written scores are useful, Nolan, but paper does not kill monsters. Neither does a donation plaque. A few students coughed into their sleeves. Lena, who stood near the back in a plain gray uniform, lowered her face. I saw her shoulders move once. Garrett's smile became thinner. You have no known magical bloodline. You have no sponsor. Your physical mana capacity is 30 units, which is below the class average. Trent carries a proven fire inheritance. Giving you the badge before awakening would waste academy resources. He said it into the hall's voice crystal. Every person heard him. My name vanished from the top line of the gold board. Trent's name replaced it. 300 witnesses watched 6 years of work disappear in one flash of light. The sponsor parents nodded. Some students laughed. One boy behind me whispered that the academy had corrected a clerical error. Trent turned so his new badge caught the chandelier light. Do not look so serious, he said. If you awaken something useful, you can carry my equipment. His friends laughed as if carrying bags was the final stage of human failure. I looked at the badge, then at Garrett. Understood. Garrett seemed disappointed. He had expected anger. Angry poor students were easy to remove. Calm poor students made people wonder whether the rules were rotten. I stepped toward the awakening prism. Colored light moved under the awakening prism. An ability could gain control and more mana, but its form never changed. That was the first law of awakening. I placed my hand on the prism. Cold light entered my palm. It passed through my chest, searched every mana channel, and gathered at the tip of my right index finger. A tiny orange spark appeared. It sounded like a nervous insect clearing its throat, then vanished. The measuring crystal beside Garrett showed 1 point of force. Its needle moved so little that an assistant tapped the glass to make sure it was awake. Then the hall exploded with laughter. Students bent forward. Parents covered their smiles. Even the boy with an ability that made spoons warm laughed. Garrett simply enjoyed being proven right in public. Ability recorded, he announced. Spark. Fire element. Rank F. The gold board changed again. My name appeared at the bottom. 300th place. The student directly above me had awakened Moist Palm. His combat score was 2. Mine was 1. Trent lifted one finger. A red hound made of fire formed beside him. It stood as high as his shoulder. Flames rolled from its teeth, and its paws blackened the stone stage. The measuring crystal showed 880 points. The difference between us was 879. His hound leaned toward my spark-blackened finger and sneezed. A wave of heat pushed my hair back. "Careful," Trent said. "My ability might eat yours by accident." Laughter rolled through the hall again. I studied the hound. Its left rear leg flickered every few seconds. Trent was feeding too much mana into the front of the structure. He had power, but his control was uneven. That did not change the current result. He could burn through a stone wall. I could frighten dry grass on a windy day. Garrett removed my scholarship badge from the tray. Students below rank 250 will report to F class. Housing assistance is suspended until you earn 10 combat marks. The bottom 10 students will face an expulsion review after the first practical test. I had 4 silver coins and 6 copper coins in my pocket. A dorm bed cost 5 silver each week. A cheap meal cost 12 copper. 100 copper made 1 silver. 100 silver made 1 gold. My financial future had just become shorter than my spark. I left the stage while the next student awakened a lightning spear. No one watched her. They were still sharing images of my spark through their viewing crystals. By the time the ceremony ended, the Academy rumor board had given me 3 new titles. The human matchstick was the most popular. The Candle Emperor was second. Someone suggested Lord of Warm Soup, which at least sounded employable. I read every comment. Reputation was information. Mockery was also information. It told me who felt safe enough to be careless. Lena found me outside the hall. She carried 2 cloth bags and wore the gray badge of a support student. Her dark hair was tied back with a piece of blue string. While everyone else had stared at my spark, she had watched Garrett remove my scholarship badge. "You did not hit him," she said. "Garrett?" "Trent." "With what?" I lifted my finger. "If his sleeve was very dry, I might have damaged a thread." She laughed. It was a quick, surprised sound, not the loud performance I had heard in the hall. "I work in the East Kitchen after classes," she said. "The cook throws away the last pot of mana broth at sunset. It tastes like a boot that studied medicine, but it is free." "Why tell me?" "Because you were the only person in that hall who looked at Trent's spell instead of his badge." She walked away before I could answer. That was the first time anyone in this world saw more than my ranking. F class occupied a low room beneath the western stairs. Our instructor said weak abilities could still light lamps, and 30 students looked at me. Testing confirmed that my mana capacity was 30 units. Spark cost 1, reached only the length of my hand, and left a brown dot on paper after 3 seconds. I cast it twice. The second dot looked exactly like the first. The dorm manager refused my old scholarship room. I paid 2 silver for 3 nights in an attic containing a narrow bed and a chair with 3 reliable legs. That left me 2 silver and 6 copper for food. At sunset, I went to the East Kitchen. The room was warm and bright. Copper pots hung above a long stove. The air smelled of onions, pepper, roasted bones, and fresh bread. My stomach reacted with more magical force than my awakening had produced. Lena stood over the final broth pot. She had added sliced mushrooms, green herbs, and a spoon of red oil. Steam curled around her face. "The cook threw this away?" I asked. "He was going to." "Before or after you added half the pantry?" "Details weaken gratitude." She filled a clay bowl. The broth was thick and gold. Soft pieces of chicken rested beneath the surface. The mushrooms had absorbed the pepper oil. A heel of bread sat on the side, toasted until the edges were crisp and brushed with garlic butter. I took 1 spoonful. Heat spread through my chest. My empty mana channels tingled. The taste was rich, salty, and sharp enough to wake a dead man. I had professional experience with that condition. "How much mana?" I asked. "About 20 units over an hour." "Price?" "For other students, 1 silver." I set 1 coin beside the pot. Lena pushed it back. I said it was free. "Free food creates debts. 1 silver creates dinner." She considered me, then took the coin. "Fine. For 1 silver, you also get the useful information that Garrett posted tomorrow's practical test. Anyone who cannot score 10 combat marks loses academy housing. Anyone who scores 0 faces immediate expulsion." Spark scored 1 point. The test targets move. Then I may miss with 1 point. That is the spirit. I ate every drop of broth and used the bread to clean the bowl. My mana rose from 0 to 20. Lena wrapped 2 small potato cakes in paper and claimed they had fallen into it by accident. I did not argue with gravity. Night settled over the academy. I returned to the attic, locked the door, and sat on the floor because the chair and I had not yet established trust. At midnight, a clear voice spoke inside my head. It identified itself as the system and said my reincarnated soul had finally synchronized with this world. 3 class paths were available. Evolution Lord could develop many abilities but required rare monster cores. Emperor of Fire would raise Spark immediately to a high rank and then fix it forever. Master of Basics offered no immediate power. It worked with one basic ability, evolving it after every 100 complete uses, with major changes at 100, 1000, and 10,000. I asked whether the evolved ability could ever be fixed again. The system said no. I asked whether there was an upper limit. The system said none had been detected. I chose Master of Basics. The other classes sounded stronger. Emperor of Fire offered a large house with a locked ceiling. Master of Basics offered 1 brick and no sky above it. The system asked me to select the basic ability. Spark. Warmth moved through my hand. No new power appeared. The voice said my first complete use had been recorded during class. 99 remained before the first evolution. I stared at my finger. In this world, abilities never changed. Mine would change before breakfast. I went to the abandoned laundry yard and marked pebbles with Spark until my mana ran out after 29 uses. The system had given me a road, not legs that never tired. I ate 1 crisp potato cake filled with onion and cheese, waited for the broth and natural recovery, then continued. The count reached 63 after 2 hours. My fingertip turned red. When I used Spark to dry a damp cuff, the system counted it. Combat was not required. A complete purpose was. I dried clothes, warmed water, lit lamps, and burned mold from a basin. At 80 uses, I could place the flame exactly where I looked. That control came from normal practice. The evolution waiting at the end did not. At 87 uses, the yard door opened. Lena entered with a basket of wet kitchen cloths. She looked at the dry shirts, the line of marked pebbles, and my red hand. Most people sleep at this hour, she said. I tried that in my first life. The long-term result was disappointing. She placed the basket down. How many? 87. I had not told her about the system. She did not ask why the number mattered. She picked up a kitchen cloth and stretched it between 2 basins. Then stop wasting targets. I used Spark to dry the cloth. 88. She hung another. 89. For the next 10 casts, Lena moved cloths while I dried them. She kept the count aloud. My hand shook. The skin below my index finger had begun to blister. At 98, footsteps and loud voices approached from the corridor. Trent pushed open the yard door with 12 students behind him. They wore red celebration ribbons and carried bottles of sweet fruit soda. His silver advanced badge gleamed on his chest. He stopped when he saw me pointing at a towel. The human matchstick is training, he announced. The students crowded through the doorway. Several raised viewing crystals. Lena's expression cooled. Trent picked up one of my blackened pebbles. How many rocks must you defeat before they promote you? The first 87 surrendered, I said. This group appears stubborn. 2 F-class students laughed before remembering which side they were supposed to support. Trent dropped the pebble. Garrett said tomorrow's target needs 10 combat marks. Your entire ability cannot make 2. Then tomorrow will provide useful data. You still think numbers will save you? Numbers saved you this morning. Your father wrote a large one on a donation paper. The yard became very quiet. Trent's smile remained, but the firehound appeared behind him. Its head scraped the stone arch. Heat rolled through the yard, and the nearest wet cloth began to steam. Let us compare numbers now, he said. 1 attack each. That old measuring post will record the force. I will use only a finger flame. If you score higher, I will give you 12 silver. If I score higher, you kneel tomorrow in the hall and admit the academy was right to put you last. 12 silver would pay for 3 weeks in the attic or enough mana food to keep me training. Lena shook her head once. She knew my measured score was 1. I looked at the final 2 wet cloths in her basket. Agreed. Trent's friends spread around the measuring post. Viewing crystals floated above their hands. More students heard the noise and entered the yard. Within a minute, 26 witnesses formed a half circle. Trent stepped forward first. He dismissed the hound and gathered fire at his index finger. The flame swelled to the size of an apple. He was using far more than the spark he had promised, but no one objected. Rules became flexible when rich people touched them. He fired. The flame struck the iron post. Red light climbed the measuring crystal. 108 points. The students applauded. Trent had used less than 1/8 of his full power and still exceeded the practical requirement more than 10 times. He turned to me. "Try not to set your nail on fire." I lifted the first cloth. Spark dried it. The count reached 99. No one noticed. They were laughing at the towel. Lena noticed. Her eyes moved to the final cloth. I held it between 2 fingers and used spark with the clear purpose of drying the water at its edge. The count reached 100. My mana channels rang like struck glass. The tiny orange point collapsed inward. Heat rushed from my fingertip to my shoulder, crossed my chest, and returned in a single violent pulse. For an instant, a black grain appeared in the center of the flame. It vanished before I could focus on it. The system spoke one sentence. Spark had evolved into fireball. Orange light filled my palm. A sphere of fire formed above it, bright and dense, wider than my head. The wet stones around my boots dried in a perfect circle. The students stopped laughing one by one. Trent's mouth stayed open. He looked like a fish that had just been told it owed tuition. "That is not spark," someone whispered. The prism recorded spark. F-rank abilities cannot evolve. Abilities do not evolve. 26 viewing crystals captured the same impossible image. I aimed at the measuring post. Fireball crossed the yard in a streak of orange light. It struck the center hard enough to bend the post backward. A ring of hot wind slapped shirts from the laundry lines and sent Trent's celebration ribbons over the wall. The measuring crystal flashed. 120 points. For 3 breaths, no one spoke. Then every voice started at once. Students pushed toward the crystal. One checked the post for hidden runes. Another replayed the recording. A third insisted Trent had weakened the target, though that would have increased his own score as well. The rumor board received so many new messages that the viewing crystals chimed like a flock of metal birds. Trent stared at the number. His casual flame had scored 108. Mine had scored 120. The difference was 12. I held out my burned hand. 12 silver. His friends became fascinated by the ground. Trent's face turned darker than his uniform. He could refuse. He could attack. He could claim the wager was a joke. Every choice would live forever in 26 recordings. He pulled a silver pouch from his belt and threw it. Lena caught it before it hit my injured fingers. The coins rang as she counted them. 12, she said. The yard erupted again. F-class students laughed openly now. One called Trent the Finger Emperor. Another asked whether his father could donate him 13 more points. Trent summoned his hound, but its left rear leg flickered worse than before. He dismissed it and walked out while his friends hurried after him. He had entered with the parade. He left with one ribbon stuck to his boot. Instructor Garrett arrived 10 minutes later. By then, more than 100 students had packed the corridor. The bent measuring post still glowed. Garrett watched 3 recordings. He tested my hand with a detection crystal. He ordered me to cast again. I selected the old spark without knowing whether it would work. A tiny orange point appeared. The system confirmed the first hidden consequence. Evolution had not replaced the earlier form. I had retained it. The crowd gasped louder at the small spark than they had at the fireball. Garrett's face tightened. "A temporary mutation," he declared, "likely caused by an unstable awakening. His registered ability remains rank F until the Capital Office confirms otherwise." The measuring post confirmed 120, Lena said. Garrett looked at her gray badge. Support students do not interpret combat law. Apparently, combat instructors do not interpret measuring posts. The F-class students made a dangerous choking sound. Garrett could punish one student for laughing. Punishing 100 required paperwork. He did not restore my advanced badge. He did not return my room, but the Public Combat Board updated automatically. My score rose from 1 to 120. My rank moved from 300th to 241st. I was still in F-class. I was still poor, but I was no longer last. By sunrise, the recording had reached every viewing crystal in the academy. The title, Human Matchstick, disappeared from the rumor board. A new title replaced it, Impossible Fireball. Lena and I carried the 12 silver to the East Kitchen. She wrapped my hand in cooling cloth while potatoes roasted in a shallow iron pan. Their skins turned crisp in butter. She cracked 2 eggs over them, added onions, black pepper, and small pieces of smoked meat, then covered the pan until the yolks became thick and gold. We ate beside the warm stove. The potatoes broke softly under my fork. Butter and pepper filled my mouth. The smoked meat was salty enough to make the plain bread taste sweet. After a night of broth and mana exhaustion, it was the best breakfast I had eaten in either life. I placed 6 silver in a second pouch. Training budget, I said. Lena pointed at the other 6. Housing and food. You are assuming the chair survives another night. The chair has better defensive ability than you. For now. The kitchen door opened. An academy messenger placed a red notice on the table. Garrett had published the practical test assignments. Most F-class students would face moving straw targets worth 10 combat marks. Trent would demonstrate against a stone wolf. My assigned opponent was an ironhide boar, a monster normally used for C-class examinations. It weighed almost 1,000 pounds. Its hide could stop ordinary fireballs. Killing it was worth 60 marks. Lena read the notice twice. "This is not a test," she said. Outside, the morning bells called students toward the arena. Hundreds of footsteps filled the courtyard. The practical test would begin in 1 hour. Inside my head, the system quietly counted my next use of spark. 101. Then the arena gates opened, and the ironhide boar screamed my name. The scream came from a cage beneath the eastern stands. Iron bars shook, dust fell from the gate arch, and every F-class student moved backward at the same time. The ironhide boar pushed its head into the light. It was longer than a wagon and almost as wide. Gray plates covered its shoulders like badly fitted armor. 2 tusks curved past its snout. Each tusk was longer than my arm. A red test seal had been painted across its back, but the seal flickered as if someone had weakened it. The moving straw targets in the other lanes suddenly looked like generous career opportunities. Garrett stood on the viewing platform with Trent and the advanced class. He raised his voice crystal. Candidate Nolan requested a higher value target after demonstrating unusual fire output. The Academy supports ambition. More than 200 students turned toward me. I had requested breakfast. The Academy had answered with a 1,000-pound pig. Lena pushed through the candidates and stopped beside the rail. She held up 2 blue glass bottles. "I spent the 6 silver from the training pouch," she called. "Each bottle restores 35 mana, but slowly. Drink one now." I caught it, pulled the cork, and swallowed. The liquid tasted like mint mixed with a metal spoon. Cold spread into my stomach. My natural mana capacity was still 30. The potion could refill it, not raise it. Fireball required 8 units. Spark required 1. I had enough power for 3 full fireballs before exhaustion. The boar's hide had been tested against attacks worth 400 points. My fireball was worth 120. Garrett rang the starting bell. The cage opened. The boar charged. Stone cracked beneath its hooves. It did not move like a pig. It moved like a house that had learned to hate me. I fired at its forehead. The fireball burst against the gray plates. Orange flame covered its face. The crowd shouted, then fell quiet when the boar came through the fire without slowing. The arena crystal gave me 3 combat marks. I needed 10. I stepped aside at the final moment. 1 tusk tore my sleeve and lifted me from the ground. I rolled across the sand, lost skin from 1 elbow, and heard the front rail splinter behind me. The advanced students laughed with relief. Trent leaned over the platform. "Perhaps evolve it again." That was the plan. I selected Spark. The tiny flame struck the gap behind the boar's left shoulder plate. It left no visible damage. 103. I struck the same gap again as the monster turned. 104. The boar charged. I ran along the rail and sent sparks behind me, each aimed at the narrow seam. The flames were weak, but they were exact. Trent's firehound could cover half the arena. It could not place heat into a space narrower than a coin. The audience stopped laughing after the 10th spark hit the same point. A red line appeared beneath the gray plate. "He is heating the joint," one student said. "With Spark?" "Spark cannot do that." He kept the old form. The boar swung sideways. Its shoulder hit me and threw me into the rail. Pain flashed through my ribs. My next spark missed and struck sand. The system did not count it. A complete use required a completed purpose. Blind repetition would not move the number. That rule had teeth. I stood before the boar turned. It charged again. I fired into the heated seam, moved, and fired once more. 120. 121. The cold potion continued feeding my channels. I felt mana return almost as quickly as I spent it, but my finger burned beneath Lena's bandage. Garrett spoke to an arena keeper. The keeper touched a control rune. The boar's red test seal went dark. Its eyes changed. Until that moment, the creature had been angry and controlled. Now foam filled its mouth. It slammed into the rail instead of turning away. Students in the first row stumbled backward. The safety barrier flashed once and failed. Trent stopped smiling. The boar climbed through the broken rail and entered the candidate waiting area. F-class students scattered. One boy dropped flat and covered his head. Another tried to summon a water bubble and trapped his own foot inside it. Trent raised his firehound. "Stay back!" he shouted. "I will stop it!" Every viewing crystal turned toward him. The hound leaped. Its jaws closed on the boar's face. 880 points of flame exploded across the platform. The crowd cheered. Then the boar walked through the hound. Ironhide plates were resistant to broad fire. Trent had power, but he had attacked the strongest part of the monster with the widest part of his spell. The hound broke into red fragments. Trent stood directly in front of two tusks. His face lost all color. I could have let the boar hit him. It would have solved one problem and created several legal ones. Instead, I ran between them. "Down," I said. Trent did not move. Lena threw an empty bottle. It struck the side of his head. He fell at exactly the right moment. I placed one hand on the ground and fired spark upward into the glowing seam beneath the boar's shoulder. The flame entered the gap. The heated plate expanded. The cooler plate above it did not. Metal-hard hide split with a sound like a breaking dish. The boar stumbled over Trent and crashed into the stone steps. The audience screamed. Half of them ran. The other half moved closer because danger became entertainment when seen through a viewing crystal. I drank the second potion. The count was 156. 44 complete uses remained. The boar rose. Blood darkened the opened seam, but it was not dead. It shook its body hard enough to throw pieces of stone from its back. Garrett shouted for the keepers to kill it. No keeper entered. The weakened seal had disabled the control commands. Someone had not merely given me the wrong monster. Someone had prepared it to break loose. I ran around the arena. The boar followed. Each time it lowered its head, I sent one spark into the wound. The audience began counting with me. 160, 170, 180. The count spread across the stands. Students who had called me human matchstick now shouted each number before the system did. They did not know what would happen at 200. Neither did I. Garrett knew that the attention was moving away from him. He ordered the voice crystal silenced. Someone in the crowd produced a second one. At 190, my mana channels cramped. The potion could restore energy, but it could not protect flesh. Each spark felt like dragging a hot wire through my wrist. The boar accelerated. At 195, its tusk cut my side. At 197, I slipped in the sand. At 198, Lena shouted from the broken rail and pointed to the creature's front leg. The damaged plate had shifted. A thin line of unprotected skin showed beneath it. I fired. 199. The boar lowered its head for the final charge. I waited until its tusks filled my vision. The stands became silent. Trent remained on the ground behind me, staring as if he had discovered that money could not negotiate with gravity. I sent spark into the narrow line beneath the plate. 200. Fireball changed inside me. Its size did not grow. Its heat folded inward. The wild orange shell became a smooth sphere with a white center. The system explained the second evolution in one short sentence. Fireball had gained compression and piercing force. I cast it from less than 10 feet away. The compressed fireball entered the split seam. For a fraction of a breath, nothing happened. Then orange light burst from the other side of the boar. The creature's front legs left the ground. Its charge stopped so suddenly that sand rolled past it in a wave. It collapsed at my feet, one tusk carving a deep line beside my boot. The arena measuring crystal rang. 68 combat marks. My new attack had reached 180 points, but all of that force had entered the weak joint instead of spreading across the armor. The stands erupted. F-class students climbed the rails. Advanced students replayed the shot. Arena keepers surrounded the dead boar and found the line of black marks exactly where I had placed every spark. The academy board displayed my result above every lane. Trent stood slowly. Dust covered his red uniform. A piece of broken rail hung through his silver badge. One student called out, "Did the last ranked student just save the best fire mage?" Another answered, "No, Lena's bottle saved him." The laughter struck Trent harder than the bottle had. He looked at me, at the boar, and at the remains of his firehound fading in the sand. "I had it under control," he said. The arena replay crystal showed his expression as the tusks approached. It enlarged the image above the platform. 200 people saw exactly how much control he had possessed. Trent walked out without waiting for his own test. Garrett descended into the arena. He did not look at the boar first. He looked at the viewing crystals. "The test is invalid," he said. The creature left its assigned lane. The F-class students became quiet. I pointed to the arena score. 68 marks. Earned during a safety failure. "The safety failure used your authorization rune," Lena said. An arena keeper held up the control plate. A bright red signature glowed on its back. Garrett. Every viewing crystal moved toward him. His polished smile disappeared. "Routine authorization," he said. "The seal must have failed on its own." "After you touched the control rune," said the keeper. Garrett looked at the man as if he had found mold speaking from a wall. The crowd began repeating one word. "Replay." The main crystal obeyed. It showed Garrett leaning toward the keeper. It showed his hand touch the rune. It showed the red seal on the boar go dark. Students shouted. Sponsor parents stood. The rumor board gave Garrett a new title before the replay ended. Instructor Boar. It was not elegant, but it traveled quickly. Garrett could not erase a result witnessed by 200 people. He turned to the board and confirmed my 68 marks through clenched teeth. My rank rose from 241st to 178th. I kept my academy place. The F-class students who had moved away from me that morning now formed a noisy circle. They touched my shoulders, asked about Fireball, and offered theories involving secret bloodlines, hidden dragons, and suspicious vegetables. One asked whether the mana broth had awakened me. Lena announced that her price had doubled. The academy paid 3 gold coins for killing a dangerous test monster. The boar's core belonged to me under examination law. A merchant valued it at another 7 gold. 10 gold in one morning. I had entered the arena with 12 silver and spent 6. I left with 10 gold, 6 silver, a torn sleeve, and ribs that objected whenever I breathed. Power, money, and rank had all moved upward. So had the number of people who wanted an explanation. Dean Kellen arrived before noon. He was a narrow man with silver hair and calm eyes. Unlike Garrett, he did not waste smiles. The academy became quieter around him. He examined the boar, the control plate, and my hand. Then he ordered every public recording copied into the academy archive. For one hopeful moment, Garrett looked frightened. Kellen handed the original control plate back to him. "A regrettable equipment failure," the dean announced. Instructor Garrett acted quickly to protect the students. The audience stared at him. The replay had shown the opposite. Kellen did not care. He was not trying to change what people had seen. He was telling them what the academy would officially remember. He turned to me. "Your ability is unusual. Until we understand it, you will report every evolution to Instructor Garrett. Any monster core or prize gained through that ability will remain under academy review. The examination law gives me the core. You are very fond of written rules. They are useful when spoken rules change every 10 minutes. The F-class students heard me. So did the viewing crystals that had not stopped recording. Kellen's eyes became colder. "Be careful, Nolan. An academy can forgive weakness. It does not forgive ingratitude. Then it should be safe from itself." Lena closed her eyes for 1 second. She later said she had been imagining a future in which I developed survival instinct. Kellen left with Garrett. They took neither my core nor my prize in front of the crowd. Public witnesses had become armor. That afternoon, the East Kitchen received half the boar as an examination fee. Lena cut thick strips from the belly and rubbed them with salt, crushed pepper, garlic, and honey. The cook roasted them until the skin became dark and crisp. Fat melted into a tray of potatoes and carrots beneath the meat. The F-class students filled every bench. For the first time, they invited me to sit in the center instead of leaving an empty space around me. The pork cracked under my knife. Beneath the crisp skin, the meat was soft enough to pull apart with a fork. Honey made the edges sweet. Garlic and pepper cut through the rich fat. We ate it with white rice and a sharp cabbage salad. Trent did not come. Someone placed his bent silver badge on the table. No one admitted finding it. I paid 1 gold for the meal and another 2 gold for a week of mana food. I placed 7 gold in a locked kitchen box. Lena wrote each expense in a small book. "You trust me with 7 gold?" she asked. "You hit Trent with a bottle when he was standing between me and a charging boar." "That is not an answer. It is a very specific qualification." She smiled and closed the box. My count had reached 212 after using spark to light the ovens and clean blood from 3 knives. Fireball now pierced better, but the next major form waited at 1,000. 800 uses remained. At dusk, a black speck appeared at the heart of the stove flame. It vanished when I looked directly at it. Far beneath the capital, a bell that had not moved in 400 years rang once. I did not hear it. I heard the Academy messenger who entered the kitchen and nailed a mission card to the wall. Garrett had selected me for the 7th day ranked hunt. Every other student had been assigned to a team of 5. My team line was empty. My target line named a safe pack of bronze horns. Across the bottom, in Garrett's handwriting, were 5 words. "Try evolving without witnesses next time." 6 days later, the Academy sent me to hunt goats and gave me a monster that ate goats for breakfast. The mission began at dawn outside Ember Cavern. Bronze horns grazed among the black rocks near its entrance. They were ugly, bad-tempered creatures with copper-colored horns and the magical strength of large dogs. 5 students could safely drive them into a warded pen. I had no team and no pen. Garrett had given me 1 rope. He had also removed the official observer assigned to my route. "Budget limits," he said from the departure platform. "Try not to confuse every inconvenience with persecution." His red coat had gained a dark patch where someone had painted a small boar during the night. He had not noticed it. 300 students had. The ranked hunt board showed my name beside Route 13. Trent led a team of 5 on Route 12. His friends wore new red cloaks and avoided looking at the bent badge tied to Lena's kitchen door. During the last 6 days, my count had risen from 212 to 913. I had lit ovens, dried uniforms, heated bathwater, burned weeds, and spent 4 hours each night striking marked stones. Every task needed a purpose. Every cast cost mana. I had spent 5 gold on recovery meals and 2 more on low-grade potions. I earned 6 gold heating a metalworker's forge after class. With the boar core sold, my locked box now held 9 gold. My mana capacity had grown from 30 to 96 through ordinary training. That was not a gift from the system. Any mage could expand mana channels by emptying and refilling them carefully. Most did it twice each week. I had done it several times each day until my arms felt cooked. Fireball evolved at every 100 uses. Its range grew, its flight became faster, its heat sharpened, its cost fell from 8 mana to 6. At 800 uses, I learned to divide 1 fireball into 3 smaller spheres without losing total force. The Academy still called it Rank F. The rumor board called that decision brave, creative, and medically interesting. Lena approached the departure platform carrying a gray case. Garrett blocked her. "Route 13 has no support position." "I am not joining his route," she said. "I purchased a public observer license." She showed him a copper seal. The license had cost 1 gold. It allowed a support student to operate a viewing crystal from the boundary tower. Garrett looked at the seal, then at the line of students watching him. "There is no audience for Route 13, he said. Lena opened the gray case. A round viewing crystal floated above it and projected an image onto the academy wall. The east courtyard appeared. More than 400 students and city visitors were waiting there. "There is now," she said. Garrett's jaw tightened. Public witnesses had become my armor. Lena had just polished it. I entered Ember Cavern. The first bronze horn attacked before my eyes adjusted. I stepped around its charge, placed spark against the knot of its capture rope, and burned the knot closed. 914. The creature pulled against the rope, discovered that freedom required planning, and fell on its side. The courtyard audience laughed through the relay crystal. I caught the second bronze horn by lighting a line of bitter moss. It hated the smoke and ran into a narrow stone pocket. 3 sparks sealed 3 resin cords across the entrance. By mid-morning, I had captured 4 creatures and reached 929 uses. The ranked board placed me in 7th position for speed. Trent's team held first. They had captured 12 bronze horns. His firehound drove whole groups toward his teammates. It was a strong and sensible method. He had corrected the flickering rear leg after our first encounter. Trent saw my relay crystal hovering near the boundary and looked directly into it. "Try to keep up, Matchstick." The courtyard reacted with a long, unhappy noise. His old nickname for me no longer worked. A joke became dangerous when the target had already set a 1,000-pound boar on fire. I found the 5th bronze horn near a deep tunnel marked with a blue safety rune. The rune had been cut. Fresh red wax covered the broken line. Garrett's authorization mark was pressed into it. I held it toward Lena's viewing crystal. Across the city, 400 witnesses saw the mark. Garrett ordered the boundary operator to end my relay. Lena had expected that. She had connected her crystal to Trent's official feed. If Garrett cut mine, he would cut the sponsor team's broadcast as well. The relay remained open. A heavy breath came from the tunnel. The 5th bronze horn ran past me. It left the cavern so quickly that it overtook its own rope. Something large moved in the dark. The cinder ape emerged on its knuckles. It stood more than 12 feet tall when it straightened. Black fur covered its arms. Cracks of red fire crossed its chest, and a round monster core glowed behind its ribs. Its combat reading was 1,500. My strongest fireball measured less than 300 after the smaller evolutions. The ape beat its chest. A wave of hot air broke the remaining blue runes. The courtyard relay became silent. Then Garrett's voice entered the cavern through the emergency crystal. "The candidate has left the approved route. The Academy accepts no responsibility." His statement arrived while the image of his broken authorization seal still filled half the screen. Even the cinder ape looked unconvinced. I fired 3 divided fireballs. The ape opened its mouth and inhaled. Every flame bent toward it. It swallowed all 3, scratched its stomach, and looked pleased. Cinder apes ate open fire. That explained why Garrett had chosen it. The creature swung one arm. I dropped beneath the blow. Stone shattered behind me. A piece struck my shoulder and turned my left arm numb. I selected Spark. The tiny flame touched a resin vein in the cavern wall. 930. I ran deeper and lit another vein. The resin did not explode. It softened and dripped across the floor. 931. The ape followed. Each hand landed in hot resin and pulled free with increasing difficulty. I used sparks on hanging roots, old support ropes, and pockets of flammable moss. Every cast served the same purpose. I was building a path and slowing the monster. At 950, the first heated rope snapped. A dead tree trunk fell from the cavern roof and struck the ape's back. It roared, caught the trunk, and threw it at me. I split a fireball into 3 and struck the trunk from the side. It changed direction by a few feet. That was enough to keep my head attached. The courtyard exploded with relieved shouting. The ranked board gave me 30 combat marks for surviving a C-class threat. My position rose to 5th, then froze. Garrett tried to classify the rest of the fight as an unauthorized event. Lena placed the examination law beside the relay crystal and read aloud. A threat released through a damaged Academy seal remained part of the assigned examination. The board restarted. Garrett's painted boar became famous across the city. At 964 uses, the cinder ape stopped chasing me. It turned toward Route 12. Trent's team had entered the cavern to investigate the noise. The ape smelled his firehound and rushed toward the larger meal. "Retreat!" I shouted. Trent summoned the hound anyway. This time his structure was stable. The red beast struck with its full 880 points. The ape inhaled and tore the spell apart between its teeth. Trent's confidence disappeared for the second time in 1 week. His team scattered. One student fell beneath a broken shelf of stone. Another lost his capture rope. The cinder ape caught Trent's cloak and lifted him into the air. Hundreds of viewers watched the Academy champion hang like laundry. "I assume you have it under control?" I called. "Help me!" It was the first honest thing he had said to me. I fired spark into the resin beneath the ape's right hand. Flame traveled across the sticky surface. The monster opened its fist in surprise. Trent fell 12 feet into a pile of bronze horn ropes. 965. His teammates dragged him away. He looked at me but did not speak. The Cinder Ape charged again. I needed 35 complete uses. I had 42 mana left and 1 potion. My left arm barely moved. The cavern path behind me was full of heated resin, cut roots, and weakened supports. It was enough. I stopped running away and began running through the path I had built. Spark dropped 1 support rope. A stone shelf hit the ape's shoulder. 970. Spark burned 1 root. A curtain of wet moss fell across its eyes. 980. Spark opened a pocket of old steam beneath the floor. White vapor hid me from its next strike. 990. The students in the courtyard counted again. This time, the sound came through every relay crystal in the cavern. Trent's team joined from the tunnel mouth. Garrett told the operator to shut down the broadcast. Dean Kellen ordered him to leave it open. Kellen was not protecting me. He had realized the entire city was watching. If the relay died now, everyone would know who feared the result. At 995, the ape broke my last stone barrier. At 996, I used Spark to burn the rope around the trapped student's leg. At 997, I ignited the final resin line. At 998, I lit Trent's dropped Firehound marker, its emergency flare called the Boundary Healers. At 999, I burned through the dead root above the ape. The root fell, but the creature caught it with both hands. Its chest opened as it roared. The glowing core behind its ribs became visible. I used Spark on the last purpose I had prepared. I lit the thin trail of resin running from my foot to the ape's chest. 1,000. Fireball contracted inside my mana channels. Every smaller evolution aligned. Range, speed, heat, division, control, and compression folded into a single shape. The system said Spark had reached its second major form. Fire Spear appeared in my hand. It was 7 feet long, narrow, and white at the center. Orange fire twisted around it in silent rings. Unlike Fireball, it did not radiate heat in every direction. All its force pointed forward. The cavern walls turned bright. The relay crystal adjusted twice and still could not hide the light. The measuring rune showed 1,600 points. The courtyard lost its mind. Students climbed onto tables. City visitors shouted at strangers. F-class lifted the old moving targets above their heads like victory banners. The gold ranking board flashed so quickly that it appeared to be on fire. Garrett sat down without finding a chair. I threw the spear. It crossed the cavern before the Cinder Ape could inhale. The narrow flame entered the exposed core. White light passed through the creature and struck the wall behind it. The ape remained standing for 1 second. Then every red crack across its chest went dark. It fell backward beneath the root it had caught. The ranked board awarded me 400 combat marks. My place rose from 178th to 40th. The city classification crystal marked my combat ability as provisional C rank. I had begun the week below a student with moist palm. That student sent me a message saying he had always believed in me. The Cinder Ape core was worth 48 gold. Examination law granted it to the student who made the kill. Lena displayed that paragraph on every relay before anyone could develop a creative memory. Kellen could not seize the core in public. Garrett tried something simpler. He claimed he had never altered the root. Lena replayed his authorization mark. He claimed the seal had been copied. She replayed his order to end the broadcast. He claimed concern for student privacy. Trent walked into view, covered in rope and resin. He told me yesterday that Route 13 would solve his Nolan problem, Trent said. The courtyard went silent. Garrett stared at him. Trent stared back. Losing 2 public fights had hurt his pride. Being used as monster food had injured it in a more educational place. Dean Kellen removed Garrett's instructor badge before the afternoon assembly. All 300 students watched. City viewing crystals carried the ceremony to shops and homes. Kellen described the removal as a temporary response to procedural mistakes. F-class began making pig noises. Garrett's face shook. He pointed at Kellen. "You approved the route change. You told me to test whether the evolution required witnesses." The dean's calm expression broke for half a breath. It was enough. Every crystal captured it. Guards took Garrett from the platform. Someone had tied a toy boar to the back of his red coat. It bounced behind him as the whole academy watched. His public authority had begun with my stolen badge. It ended with a wooden pig. That evening, I rented a clean room above the east kitchen for 1 gold each week. It had 2 windows, a square table, and 4 chairs that trusted the laws of balance. Lena cooked cinder ape mushroom stew in a black pot. The monster meat was too hard to eat, but fire mushrooms grew around its core. She browned them in butter with onions, then added potatoes, carrots, thick broth, and a dark spoon of spice paste. The stew simmered until the room smelled warm enough to live in. We ate it with a round loaf of bread. The crust cracked loudly. Steam escaped from the soft center. I dipped it into the broth until it carried mushrooms and sweet pieces of carrot. Lena unwrapped my burned hand. Blisters crossed 2 fingers. A red line followed the main mana channel into my wrist. "You cannot do 9,000 more uses like this," she said. "Not at the same speed." That sounded almost intelligent. "The stew is affecting me." She spread cooling salve over the burn. Her hands were careful. She had watched the crowd celebrate my spear, but she was the first person to look at what it had cost. I placed the 48 gold core receipt on the table. Half goes to training, 10 gold stays for food and rent, the rest remains untouched. For what? Freedom is usually expensive. Before she could answer, the room door opened without a knock. Dean Kellen entered with 2 academy guards. A tall man in a black coat followed him. Silver flame was embroidered across his collar. His eyes went directly to my bandaged hand. Kellen placed a sealed order on the table. My 48 gold had been frozen. My provisional rank had been placed under review. I was forbidden to leave the academy grounds. The man in black introduced himself as Silas of the Imperial Flame Council. He picked up the core receipt as if it already belonged to him. "Abilities do not evolve," he said. "Therefore, whatever you are using is not an ability. Until the council decides what it is, your fire belongs to the Empire." Behind him, every flame in the kitchen turned black. 14 days later, the Empire offered to return my own money if I signed away my own fire. The contract was generous in the way a wolf was generous when it left the bones. Silas placed it before me in Dean Kellen's office. The paper promised 200 gold, restoration of my provisional rank, and a private room in the advanced tower. In exchange, the Imperial Flame Council would own every form of spark I had developed or might develop. I would cast only when ordered, train only under council supervision, and surrender every record made by the system. At the bottom, a smaller clause gave the council permission to open my mana channels after death. "You included long-term career planning," I said. Silas folded his black gloves on the desk. "Most young men in your position would thank me. Most young men do not read the final page." Kellen stood beside the window. During the last 2 weeks, the rumor board had connected his name to Garrett's route changes, the broken boar seal, and 6 different pig drawings. He needed the council to protect the academy. Silas needed him frightened. "Sign," Kellen said. "Your 48 gold will be released today." "The gold is already mine." "Not while it remains under review." "Then the Empire is offering me 200 gold and 1 theft returned in exchange for all future thefts." Silas smiled for the first time. It was not a friendly expression, but it was honest. "Your ability has value because the council can control it. Alone, you are an F-class student with an administrative problem." I pushed the contract back. "No." Kellen's fingers tightened on the window frame. Silas did not move. "The school tournament qualification begins in 1 hour," he said. "Without the dean's approval, you cannot enter. Without the tournament, you cannot challenge your rank. Without rank, you cannot take paid hunts. Your 9 gold will last less than a month at your current training rate." His numbers were correct. During the 14 days of confinement, I had raised my count from 1,000 to 4,988. The kitchen ovens, laundry yard, practice stones, and every lamp in the western dorm had helped. My mana capacity had reached 260. My fire spear measured more than 5,000 points when the academy allowed me to test it. Training food and medicine had consumed almost everything I could access. I had 9 gold and 12 silver left. Silas believed the last number was a chain. The office door opened. Lena entered carrying an old book and 20 gold coins in a cloth bag. Kellen stared at her. "This is a restricted meeting." "Then you should lock the door." She placed the book on his desk. It was the academy's first tournament charter, written when the school had been too poor to refuse talented commoners. One rule allowed any ranked student to enter the public challenge ladder without the dean's approval. The fee was 20 gold. A challenger who defeated 3 seeded students received a tournament place and a purse of 230 gold. Kellen read the rule twice. That ladder has not been used in 60 years. It has not been removed. Silas looked at the coin bag. He has 9 gold. The East Kitchen advanced him the rest against his core receipt, Lena said. That was not entirely true. F-Class had contributed 5 gold. The Arena Keepers contributed 2. 3 city metalworkers paid in advance for controlled fire spear tests after the tournament. Even the student with moist palm added 10 silver and a note asking me to remember ordinary people when I became terrifying. My reputation had become a resource. I took the 20 gold and placed it on Kellen's contract. I choose the latter. The qualification arena held 2,000 spectators. Public viewing crystals carried the event across the city. Students sold fried dough near the entrance. Someone sold wooden pigs in red coats. Garrett had become an industry. My name appeared at the bottom of the challenge board. The crowd began chanting it. 3 weeks earlier, the same hall had laughed at my 1-point spark. Now people stood on benches to see it. Kellen entered the dean's platform beside Silas. Neither acknowledged the contract image floating above the opposite stands. Lena had copied every page before entering the office. The crowd read the death clause together. Their mood changed. Silas ordered the image removed. 10 more copies appeared from private crystals. Public information behaved like spilled soup. Once it reached the floor, authority could only step in it. The first seeded student entered with a granite bull. The stone creature measured 3,000 points and carried a barrier across its horns. Its owner bowed to me. He was not my enemy. He wanted the tournament place as much as I did. The bell rang. I summoned Fire Spear. A silver pattern flashed beneath the arena sand. My spear shrank to the length of a knife and broke apart. The crowd shouted. Silas raised one hand. Unregistered spell forms are restricted during qualification. Nolan is registered with Spark. He may use Spark. Kellen had added a council suppression array beneath my lane. They had allowed me onto the ladder and removed the ladder's rungs. The granite bull charged. I used Spark on the sand before its left hoof. 4,989. The tiny flame turned 1 grain of black powder red. I stepped aside and lit another grain. 4,990. The bull pursued me in a wide circle. Each spark marked a point around the arena. The audience recognized my counting method. Voices rose with each use. The stone mage sent the bull straight across the circle. I lit the 10th point. 4,998. Fire connected the black powder beneath the sand. A ring of heat formed around the bull. Stone expanded unevenly. Thin cracks appeared across its front legs. I placed 1 spark in the nearest crack. 4,999. The bull lowered its horns. I used spark inside the second crack. 5,000. The next evolution passed through every form of my ability. It did not add raw power. It removed the pause between forms. Spark, Fireball, and Fire Spear became parts of one continuous structure. The system called it seamless evolution. I called it useful. The suppression array recognized Spark and allowed the tiny flame through. Once the flame was already inside the bull's cracked leg, I changed it into compressed Fireball. The stone limb burst from within. The granite bull fell and slid across the sand until its horns stopped 1 inch from my boots. The first seed surrendered. 2,000 witnesses looked from the broken bull to Silas. His restriction had become my weapon. The second seeded student used 6 floating iron shields and a wind blade. He expected Fireball and arranged the shields in a wall. I sent 12 sparks around the sides. Each passed through the suppression field. I changed 3 into fireballs behind him, kept 8 as distractions, and turned the final spark into a fire spear after it crossed the shield line. The spear stopped against his chest barrier. It did not touch him, but the force lifted all 6 shields and planted them upright in the arena wall. The second seed surrendered while still checking whether his eyebrows remained. My public combat reading rose past 6,000 points. The crowd began shouting Master of Basics. Silas had forbidden the name from appearing on official boards. The ban improved its popularity. My third opponent carried a mirror flame. It copied any fire spell that struck its surface and returned it with equal force. Kellen had chosen the perfect answer to Fire Spear. The mirrored wall formed between us. I fired 1 visible spark into it. The mirror copied the tiny flame and sent it back. The crowd laughed. Even my opponent smiled. I caught the returned spark in my palm. It still carried the structure of my original ability. Seamless evolution changed it into Fireball. I sent it back. The mirror copied Fireball. I caught that too and changed it into Fire Spear before releasing it. The exchange accelerated. Spark became Fireball. Fireball became Fire Spear. The mirror continued returning the previous form, always one evolution behind. After 7 exchanges, the air between us looked like a tunnel of orange glass. My opponent tried to dismiss the mirror. I changed the final returned spark inside its surface. Fire Spear broke the mirror from the rear. The shockwave knocked my opponent into a safety cushion. It also tore the Red Council banner from the Dean's platform and wrapped it around Kellen's head. The arena became louder than the Cinder Ape Cavern. Kellen pulled the banner away. His silver hair stood in every direction. He looked like an angry broom wearing expensive robes. The third seed raised both hands and surrendered. The challenge board confirmed 3 victories. My rank moved from 40th to 2nd among Academy tournament candidates. Trent remained first because his inherited Firehound had recently evolved into an Inferno Hound after council training. I received the open qualification place. Kellen refused to release the prize. The crowd saw the board confirm 230 gold. They saw him press the denial rune. They saw the image of his contract still floating over the stands. The chanting changed from my name to one demand. Pay him. 2,000 voices shook dust from the arena roof. City merchants joined through their relay crystals. F-class struck spoons against the benches. The arena keepers rolled 3 ironhide boar cages beneath Kellen's platform and asked whether he wished to inspect the safety seals personally. He paid me. He also released my 48 gold, restored my provisional rank, and signed my tournament entry while every crystal watched his hand. The suppression array had been meant to show that I possessed nothing without the academy. Instead, Kellen stood beneath my score while clerks transferred 278 gold into my account. Lena repaid the 20 gold entry loan and added 2 gold interest to the F-class meal fund. After expenses, my free balance reached 256 gold and 12 silver. I had begun the month unable to afford 1 week in the dorm. Now the dorm manager sent me a fruit basket and offered the attic chair its own room. Silas waited until the crowd left before approaching me. "You embarrassed a dean," he said. "Do not mistake that for defeating the council. I embarrassed your array too. That was a small restriction. The tournament field can suppress every unregistered evolution at once. If you face Trent in the final, you will have only the spark you awakened." "The 1-point spark?" "Exactly." He walked away with the confidence of a man who had just explained my plan to me. That night, Lena and I returned to the room above the kitchen. We did not buy a victory feast. She made tomato soup with roasted garlic, cream, and black pepper. We ate it with thick slices of bread fried in butter and covered with honey. The sweet crust broke between my teeth. Hot soup softened the center. Rain touched both windows, and the kitchen stove warmed the floor beneath us. Lena counted the remaining medicine jars. "The tournament is in 9 days," she said. "Your count is 5,031. You cannot safely reach 10,000. I need 552 uses each day. Your fingers will fall off. Then the last day will be slower." She did not laugh. I looked at her hands around the warm soup bowl. "I will stop if the channels begin to tear. Before they tear. Before." She held my gaze until she believed I understood the difference. At midnight, Silas activated the full tournament array for a private test. Silver light covered the arena across the academy grounds. Fire Spear vanished from my hand. Fireball vanished next. Only one tiny orange spark remained above my finger. Deep beneath the capital, the ancient bell rang 5 times. A voice older than the Empire whispered one name through the black flame. Mordrin. Then the spark in my hand looked toward the capital as if it had heard. 9 days later, I entered the school tournament with burned hands, 176 gold, and exactly 130 uses left before my next major evolution. Silas had built an arena designed to leave me with the same spark that had made 300 people laugh. It was the fairest gift an enemy had ever given me. The tournament began at sunrise. 40,000 people filled the stone stadium and the streets around it. Viewing crystals carried the matches to every major city in the Empire. Gold banners hung from the towers. Food sellers shouted beneath them. The Academy had printed my old 1-point score on souvenir cards. Most buyers thought the cards were jokes. F-class wore them as badges. During the last 9 days, I had made 4,839 complete casts. Lena had divided each day into training, food, medicine, and sleep. When I tried to remove sleep, she removed the training room key. I spent 80 gold on mana meat, recovery broth, channel salve, and legal potions. My free balance fell from 256 gold to 176. My mana capacity rose from 260 to 460. The skin on my right hand had healed twice and split 3 times. The system did not reduce pain. It did not restore mana. It counted only complete uses and waited. My count at dawn was 9,870. The first tournament opponent attacked with an ice ram. Silas activated the suppression field. Fire spear disappeared. Fireball disappeared. Spark remained. The capital audience laughed through the relay crystals. The local audience did not. They had seen what I did with weak things. The ice ram lowered crystal horns and charged. I used spark 14 times, placing small points of heat along a curved crack in the arena floor. The ram followed me across the curve. Ice formed over each heated point and broke from sudden expansion. The creature lost its footing and slid beyond the boundary with its owner still holding one horn. My count reached 9,884. The first victory moved me into the semi-final. The Academy crowd cheered. The Capital commentators stopped calling Spark harmless and began calling the floor unusually cooperative. My semi-final opponent used a lightning net. The net covered the whole lane and left no space to dodge. I sent 16 sparks into 16 metal anchors before the net closed. Heated metal changed resistance. The lightning followed the hotter path into the arena ground. The net vanished beneath my feet. I crossed the lane and touched one spark to my opponent's barrier. He surrendered before I could evolve it inside. My count reached 9,900. Exactly 100 uses remained. The victory board placed me in the final. Trent had reached it without losing a round. The Imperial Flame Council had rebuilt his ability. His old Firehound was now an Inferno Hound with black-red armor, 3 burning tails, and a combat reading above 12,000 points. The creature was strong enough to melt the stone beneath its paws. Trent's father sat beside Silas on the highest platform. I had never met him, but he wore the expression of a man who expected the world to behave because he had paid in advance. Between matches, Lena took me beneath the western stands. She had prepared 2 soft buns filled with chopped beef, onions, and thick brown sauce. The bread was warm. Steam escaped when I broke it open. Sweet onions and pepper softened the rich meat. She also gave me clear chicken broth with noodles, green herbs, and a boiled egg. I ate slowly while the stadium shook above us. 100, Lena said. 100. The full field will count every strong form as a violation. Then I will use Spark. Trent knows you count. He counts attacks. I count purposes. She tightened the clean wrapping around my hand. And if the next form costs more mana than you have, I lose. If it tears the channel, I stop. She looked at me until the cheering above became a steady roar. Before it tears, she said. Before. For the first time that morning, she smiled. Good. I do not want to explain to the cook why the champion has no fingers. The final bell called us back. Trent waited at the center of the arena. His red uniform carried the silver crest of the council. He looked stronger than he had at Awakening. He also looked tired. Silas says your evolutions will belong to the Empire after I win, he said quietly. Do you believe him? My father signed the contract. That was not my question. The Inferno Hound appeared behind him. Heat pressed against the suppression field. One of its 3 tails flickered. The old weakness had returned in a larger form. If I lose, Trent said, the council ends my family's arena contract. Hundreds of workers lose their pay. There was his reason. Not kindness, not honor. A chain made from other people's wages. Then fight, I said. Make them watch everything. He nodded once. The final began. The hound crossed half the arena in one leap. I fired Spark into the first silver node beneath the sand. 9,901. The node warmed but did not break. I moved as one claw struck the place where I had stood. Stone became liquid at its edge. I fired into the second node. 9,902. Silas had built the suppression field from 100 linked nodes. They formed a circle beneath the arena. Each node inspected fire as it passed. Rank F spark was permitted. Every evolved form was erased. I did not need to break the field. I needed to touch every part of it. Trent sent the Inferno Hound around my left side and 3 walls of fire around my right. I crawled beneath the first wall, lost part of my sleeve to the second, and used 5 sparks while rolling past the third. 9,907. Each spark remained as a tiny ember inside a silver node. The audience started counting. Silas ordered the main voice crystal lowered. Private crystals took over. The count came from 40,000 mouths and returned through 100 cities. At 9,915, the hound's paw caught my shoulder. My barrier broke. I crossed 20 feet of sand and struck the boundary wall. Trent called the hound back before it crushed me. The capital commentators praised his control. The local crowd saw his hand shaking. The council upgrade was feeding more fire through him than his channels could hold. Red light had begun to climb his neck. If he maintained the hound too long, the ability would burn him from inside. Silas knew. He leaned forward and ordered Trent to continue. I stood and fired the next spark into a node. 9,916. Trent attacked. I moved from node to node. Every spark had one purpose. One changed the field's heat. One marked a safe step. One drew the hound toward an empty section. One burned a line through the silver dust so Lena's viewing crystal could see the pattern. At 9,930, the stadium floor displayed the first orange curve. At 9,940, a second curve joined it. At 9,950, the audience understood. I was drawing something beneath the hound. Trent understood too. He sent all 3 tails into the ground. Black-red fire raced through the arena and erased half my visible lines. The embers inside the silver nodes remained. Silas stood. "End the match," he told Kellen. "The candidate is interfering with council property." Kellen reached for the arena control. Lena projected the tournament charter above him. A competitor could alter any field element using a registered ability. Spark was registered. The council had spent 3 weeks insisting on that fact. The crowd read the rule aloud. Kellen withdrew his hand. For the first time, he chose the crowd over Silas. It was not courage, it was survival. I accepted both when useful. At 9,960, my mana fell below half. At 9,970, the wrapping burned from my right hand. At 9,980, blood ran from my fingertips. The hound struck me twice more. My ribs bent, but held. Every breath tasted of iron and hot dust. Trent was worse. Red cracks had reached his jaw. He could no longer dismiss the hound. The council crest on his uniform fed it directly from the arena array. Silas had turned his champion into fuel. "Surrender," I told him. "I cannot." "You can. You are choosing not to." He looked toward the worker section. Men and women from his family's arena company filled 4 rows. Silas had placed guards at both ends. Trent raised one burning hand. "Then finish it." The Inferno Hound opened its jaws. All 3 tails folded into its body. Its combat reading climbed from 12,000 to 15,000 points. The safety barrier cracked. People in the first 10 rows ran. I had 19 uses left. The hound began gathering one final breath attack. The arena floor softened beneath it. Silas smiled. Kellen abandoned the control platform. Even the capital commentators stopped speaking. I used Spark on the remaining nodes. 9,982, 9,985, 9,990. The hound's mouth became a black-red sun. 9,995. The crowd counted every number. 9,996. Trent fell to one knee. 9,997. Lena gripped the relay crystal with both hands. 9,998. Silas ordered the workers removed from the stands. 9,999. One silver node remained beneath Trent's feet. The Inferno Hound released its breath. A column of black-red fire crossed the arena. It was wider than a house. The safety barrier shattered outward. 40,000 people saw the attack coming toward one student holding a flame smaller than a fingernail. I touched Spark to the final node. 10,000. Every ember I had placed beneath the field evolved at once. The system spoke through the roar. Spark had reached its third major form. Flame Dragon opened its eyes. The silver suppression circle rose from the ground. 100 tiny sparks connected into a vast orange spine. Fireballs formed its scales. Fire spears became its claws and teeth. 2 wings spread across the entire arena, bright enough to turn morning into white light. The dragon's head rose behind me. Its combat reading reached 25,000 points. The national ranking crystals stopped for 3 full breaths. The capital commentators made sounds that contained no useful language. The flame dragon inhaled the Inferno Hound's attack. Black-red fire entered its mouth and vanished. The dragon grew brighter, its eyes fixed on the hound. Trent looked up from the sand. He began to laugh. 1 point, he said. They lost to 1 point. I sent the dragon forward. It crossed the arena without touching the crowd. 1 claw broke the council crest on Trent's chest. A second tore the 3 burning tails from the Inferno Hound. The dragon closed its jaws around the hound's neck and carried it into the sky. Orange and black fire twisted above the stadium. Then the hound broke into harmless red light. The flame dragon returned and lowered Trent gently onto the sand. That final act cost more control than the attack. My mana fell from 460 to 28. Fire burned backward through my right arm. I dismissed the dragon before the main channel tore. The great shape collapsed into 10,000 sparks. They fell over the stadium like warm rain. No one spoke until the victory board rang. Then the world became noise. 40,000 spectators shouted. F-class students climbed onto the academy platform. Arena workers pushed past Silas's guards and caught Trent when he tried to stand. Viewing crystals replayed the dragon from every angle. In the capital, crowds filled the council square before officials could close the gates. Trent faced the main relay. His uniform was burned. His silver badge had melted down the center. I lost, he said. Nolan awakened Spark. I watched it become Fireball. I watched it become Fire Spear. Today it became a Flame Dragon. No one gave it to him. The council tried to take it. His father stood behind Silas and slowly removed the council ribbon from his coat. The arena workers did the same. Silas seized the judge's voice crystal. The result is invalid. The candidate used an unregistered high-rank entity. Lena sent the complete cast record to the victory board. It showed 10,000 uses in one continuous line beginning with the practice card from my first day. Kitchen ovens, laundry cloths, marked stones, the ironhide boar, the cinder ape, the open ladder, and 100 arena nodes appeared in order. The final entry identified the dragon as Spark's evolved form. The board asked the National Registry to classify it. Silas ordered the connection cut. Kellen stepped away from the control. The Academy recognizes the result, he said. His voice shook, but every crystal heard him. The National Registry confirmed the victory. My name moved to Academy Rank 1. It entered the Empire's youth ranking at 27th. The prize account released 1,000 gold. My available balance rose to 1,176 gold and 12 silver. Silas still held the voice crystal. No one listened to him. F-class began chanting 1 point. The arena joined. The chant spread through the city relays and reached the capital. Each repetition struck the council harder than a fire spear. Silas tried to leave the platform. A melted piece of his suppression array had fused to the hem of his black coat. He pulled once, lost his balance, and landed in the dean's ceremonial chair. The chair broke. For a strange second, I remembered the 3-legged chair in my attic. It had possessed better defensive ability. Council guards carried Silas out while thousands of souvenir cards showing my old score rained onto the platform. Dean Kellen remained. The Academy sponsors had watched him approve an illegal monster route, freeze prize money, and help install the suppression field. Before sunset, they removed his financial authority and opened a public inquiry. He kept his title for the day and lost everything that made it useful. Garrett sent a message from detention asking whether the inquiry needed a witness. Lena charged him 1 gold for paper. The tournament ceremony lasted 2 hours. I received the champion's medal, a new academy room, and enough invitations to cover a wall. I refused the council invitation first. The others could wait until I had slept. I transferred 100 gold to the F-class meal fund. Another 50 paid for new safety seals in the test arena. I repaid every student who had supported the ladder fee, though most tried to refuse. The student with moist palm accepted his 10 silver and sent back a warm spoon as a gift. At night, Lena locked the east kitchen doors. The cook had prepared a whole roast duck. Its skin was dark, crisp, and brushed with honey. Garlic potatoes filled the tray around it. There was fresh bread, green salad with sour dressing, and small buns covered in hot caramel. Trent sat at the far end of the table with his arms bandaged. F-Class watched him in silence. He placed 12 silver beside my plate. "For the first wager," he said. "I threw the pouch at you. That was rude." Lena caught it. "Then it is an apology to Lena." She took the coins. "Accepted." The room relaxed. Someone gave Trent a carved wooden pig. He stared at it, then set it beside his plate. We ate. The duck skin cracked like thin glass. Sweet honey gave way to salt and rich meat. The potatoes had soaked up garlic and roasting juice. Warm bread carried butter across my tongue. The caramel buns stuck to my fingers and made Lena threaten to bandage my other hand for cleanliness. For one quiet hour, there were no rankings, contracts, monsters, or empires. There was a warm stove, full plates, and people who had once been strangers sharing food around one table. Lena sat beside me. "What will you do with 1,000 gold?" she asked. "Buy mana food." "Of course." "And a chair." "A strong chair?" "At least C rank." She laughed and leaned her shoulder against mine for one breath. Then every flame in the kitchen turned black. The windows shook. Outside, people began screaming. We ran into the courtyard. Above the distant capital, the night sky had opened around a black sun. Soot moved across the stars. A shape larger than the city turned beneath the clouds, bound by chains of silver fire. Silas stood at the academy gate. His face had lost every trace of pride. "The council's fire was never ours," he said. "We stole it from the thing beneath the capital." The system spoke inside my head. It identified Mordrin, the Cinder Emperor. The ancient creature had noticed the new flame dragon. One black eye opened inside the sun and looked directly at me. Then Mordrin's voice crossed 300 miles and shook every fire in the empire. "Little spark," he said. "Evolve again."